I'm Vernell Brown III, class of 2025 wide receiver. I'm from Gainesville, Florida. I currently go to school at Jones High School in Orlando, Florida.
What are your earliest memories of the game?
I mean, I was born into a football family, so I always knew my dad played football and my papa played football and my uncle. My earliest football memories, I would say, is the year before I started playing. My cousin was playing for the baby Gators, so I used to be at the practices at Northeast Park. So I was at the practices running around while they were practicing. Then on game days, I'd be watching them, mad because I couldn't play. So yeah, that would probably be my earliest memory.
What age was this?
I was 4. I couldn't play till I was 5.
So you were chomping at the bit.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like I was born into it, being the family that I was born into and what everybody did, but just those memories, and there was always a constant love of football.
What happened on your first carry ever?
Touchdown. First play, I was 5 years old, baby Gators, first play, touchdown. First touch ever.
And it might have been then, was there a moment early on in your childhood where you were like, I can do something with this?
Ever since I was young, probably after that first carry, because like I always been confident. I mean, confidence was never an issue, but after that first carry, boy, you couldn't tell me nothing. So yeah.
I've seen you say before you wanted to be better than your dad. When did that become like a thing? And how did that fuel you, motivate you coming up?
Growing up, just seeing my dad and the example that he set for me, I always wanted to be like him, but I wanted to be better than him as well. So, I mean, obviously, I knew what he did at Florida. You know, I knew what he's done up until the Florida. He made it to the league, but I always wanted to do more.
Sure.
So I always seen what he did. I wanted to be like him, but I always wanted to do more.
How has he influenced you the most?
Honestly, I would say he's probably the biggest role model in my life. You know, he does everything right. Just shows me how to be a man, how to raise a family outside of just football, instilling that hard work, that competitive nature, and just, you know, being that positive example.
Is there one piece of advice that he's given you over the years that's stuck with you, or some pieces of advice, mottos and stuff that you...
I think the biggest thing, the most consistent, is run your race. When I was in 9th grade, I was playing on teams with highly recruited guys. I'm like, man, where mine at? And he just like, be patient, yours is coming, and now here I am.
Growing up in Gainesville, what was that like for you?
I think growing up in a city where there's a college kind of gives you that edge because it gives you something to look forward to. Hearing about the Gators, seeing the games, going in the swamp, just seeing that atmosphere, growing up around it, and then on Saturday, you playing and then watching the Gators play, I think it definitely gave me that edge just because it gives you something to look forward to. This is what I want to do. And I think just living in Gainesville, and I think more so Wildwood has impacted this more than anything, that period of time when I was living there. It's a smaller town, so with smaller towns, you kind of get a lot of, there are more small-minded individuals than in a bigger city. Just being around those, it could either have 2 impacts. You could either be small-minded, just like some of those people, or it could be like, nah, I'm gonna go do this. So I think just being in those smaller environments, I think it kind of really makes you self-evaluate and figure out what you want in life. There's people saying, oh, wow, you really think you could do that? I'm like, yeah, I could do it.
Yeah. You might not think so.
Right.
You played varsity as an 8th grade. And what was that introduction like?
So in 7th grade, I got to play JV, and I was tearing it up, and the coach called my dad and asked, could I play varsity? So I did play a little bit of varsity in 7th grade. Going into 8th grade, I knew I was on varsity. I was actually the starting corner. I think that's one of the most pivotal moments in my high school career because, you know, being the 8th grader playing with the big boys, there's a lot of adversity that come with that. And plus, I was at DB.
Yeah. So
I'm smaller than everybody. I'm not as fast as everybody, not as strong. All that adversity, you know, kind of the getting blurred, getting ran over, like it teach you that composure. And now when it's your turn, or when that happens, you know, it doesn't bother you.
When did you make the switch to receiver at Wildwood?
9th grade. So 8th grade, I was at DB, and then I scored 1 touchdown my 8th grade year, and I was in like the first round of playoffs.
Okay.
Like 1 touchdown, that's it. To 9th grade, I was playing both sides, and then receiver, I don't remember how many yards. I had like 500, 600, something like that. And then fast forward to that spring, I remember like it was yesterday, Michigan was in the weight room, and I got called in there, just introduced myself, and then I was just sitting there listening to them talk. Then I went back to class, and then my uncle, who was the coach at the time, Uncle Vince, he called me. He was like, did the Michigan coach say anything to you? I'm like, nah. And then I was stuttering because I'm like, was he supposed to? I'm like, nah, he didn't say nothing. He was like, boy, they offered you today. And that was crazy. I ran out of class. It's actually a video. Man, I was so excited. It was just like, wow.
What grade were you in at this point?
Ninth.
Ninth grade.
Ninth.
Wow.
It was May my ninth grade year.
First offer, Michigan.
Right. And then I got my first 4 in like a week. So to have my first 4 Power 5 offers, like, whoa. So that was crazy.
I know that there was one offer that was a little special though, and that was Nick Saban. And then you get the offer like a month before he retired.
Kind of growing up, and then early on in the recruiting process, like all the offers was cool. You can have 50 offers. And if you don't have Alabama, it don't really matter. So just having that Alabama offer is like, okay, yeah, he can play. Like, he legit. It's almost kind of like validation. So I remember we went to the camp. You know, I balled out. Everybody was saying the right stuff, but Nick Saban had a speaking to go to. And most people only get offered at Alabama by Nick Saban. So they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna keep in touch. Because it was a 2-part camp. So we did the morning session so we could get back. So then I'm like, dang, I just did all this and still ain't get it. So then fast forward, I think it was like right after the season, I remember my coach, he was like, how you feel about Alabama? I'm like, coach, I never got the offer. He like, huh? Like, let's call him right now. So then we called him, and it was like, he don't have an offer? Or we should have been offering him. Well, yeah, he got an offer right now. And then I think Texas A&M called like right after.
Yeah.
That was definitely probably one of the most important offers.
I kind of like checked the box for
Right, right.
Now, you mentioned being at Jones. You make that decision to leave Wildwood. Talk about that decision to kind of step out of your comfort zone, get on a bigger stage, as much as that it was hard to do because of the family dynamic.
I think that living with my uncle and going to Wildwood was before the whole Orlando came into play. I think that was when we were thinking about moving up to Indianapolis. Like, I didn't want to move to Indianapolis, honestly. So when Orlando came into play, I was like, okay, yeah, let's go to Orlando. I was happy, but we didn't know where we were going. So we were looking at schools, and we were about to go to this one school, and then I remember me and my brother was sitting at the table, and my dad was like, y'all want to go to Jones? Yes, that's where we going. It was done from there. From then on, like, the school that we were going to, I was like, man, I ain't gonna lie, I'm not even worried about them anymore. You know, we going to Jones. So then fast forward, I get there on a Friday. We had a 7-on-7 tournament Saturday. So Friday, it was 4 receivers. It was only 3 on the field, and there was 1 miss. He was like, oh, you in. So we running routes. Then the next day, we at USF 7-on-7. Tear it up, we win the whole thing. And then that's when I announced that I'd be transferring to Jones.
Yeah.
So then it blew up, right? And then they're like, oh, who is this new person? Who's this new person? So boom, like 2-3 weeks later, we go to Miami, 7-on-7. And it's like Central, Northwestern, all the big Miami schools down there. Tear it up again, win the whole thing. Have like 3 touchdowns on Miami Central. I think that's kind of when everybody kind of knew my name throughout the state.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're not really verified until you go through South Florida. So going through South Florida and tearing it up, that's when kind of everybody knew my name. And then obviously this season having 1,400 yards and 4th round of the playoffs, I went out due to injury, but just watching my film and seeing what I did this season, and then over the course of SFE 7-on-7, you know, that's kind of put me on the map.
And when you tore it up down south with Jones in the 7-on-7, you had not played for SFE yet.
No.
How did that come about?
My dad used to have a 7-on-7 organization,
Yeah.
and they used to always go at it with SFE. You know, they would lose in the championship to them. And then Sam Bruce was on the team. I was like, I want to play for SFE. Yeah. So then when the opportunity presented itself, I was like, oh yeah, that's who I'm playing for, just off of that. Yeah. And then I wasn't really thinking about, oh, I'm going to blow up. I was just playing football for SFE.
Going to Jones made your name ring around the state.
Right.
SFE made you ring nationally.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Were there moments, tournaments that you can remember that kind of stand out?
Yeah, I would say the tournament that stands out the most is the first OT7 when we were in Dallas. We played on NFL Network against Grand Elite. That was our first OT7 game. I had 4 touchdowns. So boom, and then continuing that throughout the whole weekend, I think I had like 9 touchdowns the whole weekend. So then everybody like, whoa, like 4 touchdowns. I think that's when I was already a guy for SFE, but I think that's when I kind of became one of the main characters on the team.
Sure.
From other people's perspective.
The viral moment. Shut up, Jit. You're talking to me. What was happening there? What was being said before the play? And, you know, you're no stranger to celebrating in the end zone, but
right.
that was something different.
So it was in Battle, New Orleans. And one thing I can say about Louisiana people, they gonna talk. So we had played Saturday night, because that was on Sunday. So Saturday night we played, and he wasn't even on the field, and he just talking. I'm like, bro, who are you? So then we had played bootleggers, because that's who he was with, and then we beat him. So then he like, oh, we don't care, we're going to see you tomorrow. So then I don't know where he came from. We weren't even playing bootleggers, but he found me, he was just talking, So we were on the extra point, and he like, dude, you suck. And then they bet money on the DB that he was going to guard me. So then it was like perfect. I ran a slant, and as soon as I caught it, I went straight to him, like, shut up, Jet, stop talking to me. Like, he deserved that one. That was a long time coming.
What do you feel like is the strength of your game?
Aside from all the athletic ability and all that, you know, I'm extremely dynamic with the ball in my hand. I feel like there's nobody in the country who can do what I do with the ball in their hands. Just at the receiver position. And then I honestly would say just my knowledge of the game and understanding. You know, talent can only take you so far, ability will only take you so far, but I think just my ability to process, my understanding of the game, understanding coverages, understanding both the receiver and DB position and using that to my advantage. I think it all just boils down to knowledge, you know? Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
You might have just answered this, but what do you feel like is the most underrated aspect of your game that people don't give you credit for enough?
Honestly, I think it's the fact that I can play both sides at a really high level.
Yeah.
I remember in this January period, like, it was schools asking, what side of the ball do you want to play? So I think that's what it is, and my ability to play DB just as good as I can play receiver.
Most of those things are rooted in your running back background.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Trace.
Yeah.
How did that set you up for the player that you become?
And literally, the best players always play running back. If you like that, you at running back. So, I mean, running back, being in them tight spaces and having to make a move in a tight area and then just playing outside.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of just what did it, because I was doing it naturally. Like, I wasn't trying, I was just playing. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I think one thing that separates me from everybody else is my ability to handle pressure. Big game, third down, fourth down, it don't matter. Like, just give me the ball, I'm good.
How do you feel like you've handled your increased spotlight, your increased notoriety?
I think the biggest thing is, you know, staying the person that I am. Being a good person is, I think, sometimes overlooked with rankings. When people rank kids, like, I think the person should be as good, if not better, than the player that they are.
Yeah.
So I think just staying the same person that I was before I got there is what's going to help me take me to that next level, and then remembering what got me there. Okay, yeah, I'm a 5-star now, but I had to work to get here. So when I got here, like, that doesn't change. I'm still going to work to, you know, continue to advance. So I think just remembering what got me there, and then me loving the process, just the process of becoming good or great at something. I think that's what really helped me, and me being disciplined enough when I always don't feel like working out, or some days, like, man, you might want to play that Madden game, you want to finish that Madden game. Nah, you got to work out, you got to get better. So just me loving the process and me enjoying working out and doing what it takes to be the best, and then just me being disciplined enough.
What do you feel like has been the biggest obstacle that you overcame in your life?
Probably my size, because when I was younger, I was small, but I've never really been small. So just hearing people like, oh, he little, I'm like, where you get this from? Now, my dad's not that big, but just like, bro, where you get this from? I'm not little. I think early on, a lot of people kind of wrote me off, because in 9th grade, I was 5'7", 130. So just being that, like, bro, I'm not little. I grew since
you last saw me.
Right, yeah. So I think that was the biggest thing initially. Like, almost every visit I've been on to a new campus, like, my first time, they're like, oh, you a lot bigger than we thought. Like, yeah, I'm not little.
This recruiting process, narrowing it down, getting it down to these 4 schools, I imagine in some ways it's a dream come true.
Right, I mean, I can't say visits have an easy way of persuading you, but me knowing what I want, not only in college, but out of life, I think that kind of helped me stay tunnel vision and not get influenced by all the outside, like, having a good time. You have a good time everywhere. I think just me knowing what I want, and then, like, can I really see myself at this school? I think that kind of helped me with everything. But it's definitely a blessing to be in the process. You know, I've been through it, so yeah, it's been a really good process. I'm ready for it to be done, though.
Yeah. What was your favorite part of the process?
Honestly, I would just say just meeting the people, getting to see different parts of the country. Very rarely have I been on a plane that it hasn't been for football or something sports related. We were flying to the Under Armour camp in Atlanta.
Wow. So
I think just being able to meet those people and building connections all over the country through football.
What's been the hardest part of the process?
Oh, man. I think the most annoying part is, like, when you got 40 text messages a day, or like 10 schools calling you a day. At first, It's pretty cool, but I think it gets really old really fast. Like, man, I just need a break.
Talk to me about how you went through this process evaluating Florida and evaluating all the other schools.
Not only looking at it through a football lens, but what do I want out of life? How can this program help me in 40 years versus just 4? Because, I mean, in the 4-year aspect, there are definitely programs that are just as good, if not better than Florida in certain aspects. You go to Georgia and win 4 natties.
Yeah.
You go to Ohio State, not guaranteed, but I guess that you could say that's the highest percentage of being a first-round pick. But, I mean, I think just, like, as far as a life perspective, what program benefits me the most in life, and I think just that family legacy and being that my dad has done what he's done at the university and the connection that he's made and the people that he knows, me already having my foot in the door and being able to advance those relationships and 40 years from now be making more money than I would have ever made in the league is what kind of made the decision for me, right? And honestly, I can't say I didn't always see the bigger picture. Even now, like, these schools are good schools, but I think just my dad, and he never made a decision for me. Like, he never tried to convince me or anything. He was just asking me real questions, and just me answering those questions, it was always one school. Throughout the process, in any recruiting process, you're gonna be like, I wanna go to this school. Now I wanna go to this school. But Florida's always the school I came back to. Like, even when I didn't want to, like, I just came back to it. It's like, I say I wanna go here, I'm like, do I really wanna go here? I'm not sure. So just me always coming back to Florida, I think that's kind of what really solidified it. And then after the OVs, you know, kind of sitting down and having those conversations, like, one question, there's a better school. This question, there's a better school. This question, Florida's the best. This question, there's a better school. Overall, when you ask the big picture question, what's the best school?
Yeah.
Florida, in my opinion. Because of the outside factors, Florida's the best school just with that brand and everything. And honestly, I think the biggest difference between Florida and Ohio State is the fact that Florida's in Florida, because I knew, like, in life, I probably 9 times out of 10 is going to live in the state of Florida. Obviously, with the NFL, it'll take me elsewhere, but when you talk about home base, definitely be in Florida. And I think just, you compare brands, maybe the Ohio State brand is bigger on a greater scheme, but in the state of Florida, it's not bigger. And that UF degree is definitely a lot different than what it used to be.
What gives you the confidence about the staff, who your position coach will be? What about those factors make you feel like, man, I can see this working?
I think just the biggest thing is, you could say Florida's kind of at rock bottom right now. So when you're at the bottom, you can't go nowhere but up. You can't get any worse.
Yeah.
So I think just me being from Gainesville, that element of pride, and then me having enough confidence in myself that I could help build us back to where we are. You know, some people can't handle that pressure. I feel like I can handle it. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I mean, I think as far as recruiting, my quarterback and all that, one thing about it is it's the University of Florida. Like, majority of the kids in state grow up wanting to go to Florida. It's just not an ideal situation. And some people, there's more stable situations out there. So it's always the University of Florida. So when it gets back right, it's going to be back right for a long time.
The thought of you lining up with DJ Lagway and there being 2 trays for him to throw to, what's that? What do you think about that?
Man, that's crazy. Then a player like Eugene, my first year would be his last year, so kind of getting to learn from him, learn up under him, see what he does, and kind of create my own path from that, I think is big, because he's somebody who's proven it, who's already done it. So coming in, you can play right now, but you don't have to figure it all out on your own. So he can kind of guide me and help me. That way when he leave, it's my turn.